All right,
Okay, we are
I guess
live.
we're live.
48-hour art check, round 61.
Yes.
Insert animation here. All right, so we are actually in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time Josh and I have met.
Yeah, it's just a blue screen. Cory doesn't know. I'm just kidding.
Got a green screen. We have this nice divider here. So
Exactly. That's a good point. It could be a split screen. Look at this special effects.
Because when Scott Circland and I were in the same room, we did the split screen to fool everybody.
There you go.
So no, we're actually
Genius.
yeah. All right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So we are here. I'm here for a conference, and Josh lives here.
Mm-hmm.
And we've brought Steven, who we will berate later. But let's do the art check.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So I can't remember what I showed last time, but this is where I'm at on my page. And I just did Dr. Girlfriend from Venture Brothers as Samus the other day, and there's a bunch of background. And I can't remember which ones are new. I think maybe Tink and Yoda or something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think it's cool to see your work in person. You ink very cleanly.
Oh,
which
really?
is cool, yeah. So, some nice inks on this page. So my progress so far is I inked the second panel on my page, which I did not bring to work with me. I drove here straight after where I work as an art director. I wear this costume at work so that I can negotiate with salespeople. But anyhow, so you can check it out on my Instagram though. So.
Cool.
What was some of your struggles?
I was in a hotel, so struggles were
This hotel?
hotel.
Okay.
It was upstairs in this hotel that we're at, and that was the main struggle. The main struggle was like just being on the road. I was a little worried that my pens would blow up after last time you were talking about that, so I intentionally didn't draw on the airplane so that they wouldn't get
No exploding
weird
pen issues.
right?
Yeah.
And so I brought all of them just in case.
Wow.
I have like a ridiculous amount of stuff
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, that's like a army pack right there.
Right,
That's awesome.
and so I have extra cartridges just in case. But yeah, the main thing is just being on the road, not having any of my setup.
Yeah. Yeah.
I use these binder clips and 2 pieces of press board,
Mm-hmm.
and then a couple pieces of paper on either side, and it actually made it so it traveled really well.
That's awesome. Like a
Just
little
like-
portfolio case.
Yeah, so I just kind of cramped it all down, and then
And
it worked all right.
that's a good tip for everybody too, because like these things, like this, I think this is like MDF or something, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you can get this like a giant sheet of this at like Home Depot for like $1.
Yeah, they're
And
super inexpensive.
They're actually pretty good for backing paintings too. Like you can
Yeah, a lot of people paint
gesso
on
it,
the
paint.
slick surface.
Mhm. But if you just get 2 of those, you basically made a portfolio case.
Right.
And you didn't have to carry around an awkward tube
Yeah.
or get a giant bag
sure.
for a bit. Yeah.
And for anybody who flies like at all, it's like you basically, if you can manage to get everything in carry-on, that's the ideal situation,
Right.
you know. So yeah,
Yeah.
cool. My big struggle was just basically, actually I didn't really have a huge struggle this week. I guess the only thing is. And we'll probably be touching on this when we start talking to you more, but for me it's more of like I have mixed interests, and so like I do music as well, and I'm doing this whole band thing, and we're recording an album just for fun, and so we had practice last night, and so there was that like
Right.
overcoming that hurdle of when I get back from a creative project, I've already got my creative
Right.
outlet and stuff, from doing that to trying to kind of like be like, okay, and then I'm going to put in the extra time
Right.
to do this panel.
Yeah.
When I basically got home, pretty much didn't want to.
Right.
So that was my biggest struggle is trying to kind of maintain that daily habit.
Yeah.
But I overcame it. So
Yeah. So
Plans?
plans, I will be at this conference until Friday night. And so I've got both pages here. And so I probably won't get to the other page, but I'm going to do probably the Powerpuff Girls characters. And I've roughed out most of like Goku as Man at Arms. So I'm just going to try to get as much done as I can.
nice.
While letting me sleep.
Sure. Yeah, Steven's like, hey,
Sure,
will you
no.
turn off the light? And I'm like, I'm not done drawing, so close your eyes.
On the road again.
makes you thankful they have the 2 lights in the room. This page is pretty close to finish though, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I
like
still
you made
got
a
rough
lot of
end.
progress.
Yeah, I spent most of Sunday doing like all the background work,
Nice.
which turned out a lot different than I would have hoped. But it's okay. It's different, but it's still workable. So
Yeah, and I think maybe some of the difference you're seeing in the background might actually be good. Because from what I remember with the pencils, a lot of it was so line oriented that it actually got kind of just it could have gone the route of being like distracting from the figures in the foreground.
yeah,
I think the fact that you're doing it kind of minimally actually works to the advantage of the stuff in the foreground. So I think it's working.
yeah. And I mean, I'm planning on coloring this because a lot of these characters don't make sense without color.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to know this is Batman or Hulk as Batman unless he's green.
Yeah, and it just kind of, since it's a crossover piece and stuff, it needs color. It's going to need color, but it looks good. It's working.
No.
Anyhow.
That is the reaction that I hope I get with everyone is just giggling
A lot of
occasionally.
wordless wonder. Yeah.
It's good. All right, so
your plans.
Oh yeah, so my plans are to. I'm hoping to finish inking my page, but we'll see. I mean, like minimum, I'm gonna get 2 more panels done.
Cool.
So.
All right. So now, what we thought our topic would be, Stephen here is a very good writer, who I've known for a couple years. He teaches with me on campus, and Josh and I are going to find out why he hasn't finished any projects yet.
Great.
So yeah, so
great.
why don't we switch seats?
Oh,
You can sit in between us.
Oh, I
so
like
that
it.
There's even more
That's awesome.
confrontation.
It's like Crossfire on CNN
Yeah.
or something.
lovely.
All right. So
Are you the good cop or?
right. We're good. So here's the thing, right? Here's why I thought this conversation would be interesting to do. This is gonna be so much fun.
This is fun.
Here's why I thought this conversation would be interesting to do, because I tell people all the time, like, you should do a side project.
Right.
Like, you should do something you're not required to do.
I say that to people all the time
and you,
too.
you also hypocritically say that to people all the time. Just kidding. but no, I'm curious, like, and I think this will be helpful for people watching this video, because for me it's become such a huge part of my life and my daily routine
Yeah. Oh yeah.
that it's hard to imagine how you wouldn't do that. So for me, this conversation will be interesting because my first question is, why aren't you doing it? Like, legitimately, what is stopping you? What's getting in your way, either on a micro or a macro level?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think macro-wise, it's kind of like the classic examples you can always throw out of, oh, it's a stage of life. I'm busy. When I get home from work, I just want to chill, Netflix and chill or whatever it may be. And I think that's an easy excuse that I put out all the time for, putting off the things that I really want to be creating.
And when you're doing that, are you telling yourself that you're going to start it later?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
There's always tomorrow.
There's always the intention of
Till you're dead.
starting
Yeah.
it, just not today.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
as my mother always says, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to, so the desire's there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And on a day-to-day basis, it's just you're not making time. So on a longer time period from, why isn't there a starting point in a month or in a year where you've gotten halfway through a book or several chapters into something? Or
I feel like it's a combination of so many of those ideas and, oh, wait, he has no hair.
does the baldness come into play?
Oh, yeah, every day.
Okay, right.
What was I going to say?
There's the Samson creative.
Yeah, exactly. It's like grow it out, and like the creativity and the discipline will
It's
return.
like, oh, it's back.
It's like, duh.
The strength has been gone.
No, but like part of it is totally that perfectionistic streak
Yeah.
that I have, and I think a lot of people have.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't want to start it yet because the idea isn't fully formed. But I know this as a as a somewhat writer, you have to have something to start.
Yeah.
You have to have something to be able to improve upon. So you just got to start.
Yeah.
But that perfectionism just still gets me for whatever reason. Maybe it's the public school system.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what that means, but I just said it.
No, so I think you're touching on some things that are interesting. I'm gonna give my brother a shout out. He does blogs and stuff. He's a college professor at like a junior college in Northern California.
Cool.
And he writes a blog called OIC, which is a pretty good blog you guys should check out. But anyhow, he wrote an entry that like yesterday, and that's why this is all fresh on my mind. My brother's much older than me, but he's never written a book, and he's an English teacher, and he teaches creative writing.
Right, exactly.
And he's a good writer, a decent writer, but he wrote this whole blog about whether it was perfectionism that was preventing him from creating, or whether it was and it's an interesting thing where it's analyzing basically like what's been preventing him from writing books.
Right.
And he ended up concluding for himself that it was actually kind of pretension in a weird way, because he had been assuming he was a good writer. But he had been practicing and reading about writing.
Oh yeah.
But he kind of came to the conclusion like he needed to actually humble himself a little bit more and just do it.
Amen.
Because he's going to learn more. So anyhow, what's interesting is what you're talking about, and then what I read like literally yesterday.
Yeah.
It really reminds me of like the two narratives kind of remind me of.
There's also an interesting narrative that you just mentioned that I lived through as a kid, where I identified as an artist so much, I self-identified as an artist so much that it became terrifying to do art.
Exactly.
Because if I were to do a bad drawing,
Right.
then that would not just be a bad drawing, it would be like some sort of existential crisis where I would crumble as a self-identity.
Yeah. And that kind of mindset actually for me was a very similar thing with comics, where I did a lot of first pages.
Right.
Like just endless
yes.
first shots at pages.
Yep.
And so like I think the only way I broke that loop was to just kind of go, well there's no like perfect scenario where you're going to know everything you need to know to do it.
Yeah.
And then nobody who does it really knows what they're doing. And those two things, and also just the realization of like, at the time I was like in my like mid-20s or late 20s, and I was like, I'm already in my late 20s and I have
It's too
nothing.
late for me. No.
Well, at the time I was just like, I have nothing to show for it.
Right.
And that's going to be my life. If I don't actually make, like, there's no point where you're going to be a person with like a published author or a person who has a couple books under their belt until you've actually just done the work. And the scary thing with that too is your first few books are going to suck.
Yes.
Right.
So unless you're, that rare exception, you're J.D. Salinger, and then your first book's your best or something.
Right.
You know?
And then you become a hermit and never talk to anyone for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, you write a lot.
Cory, maybe you're misrepresenting.
Okay, so in fairness,
I do not write currently as much as I used to,
but
because I'm teaching full time.
Yeah.
But I write, and I'm constantly thinking about writing constantly.
Yeah.
I'm reading all day as a part of like teaching it well and reading up on what's new and reading things that fascinate me and getting new ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, you should see my Google Doc list of ideas of projects and stuff that I want to do. It's, size 10 font, like that long.
Okay, so
And I
so
have like chapter 1 and chapter 1 and chapter 1 and chapter 1 of like 7 different things.
Okay.
So let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah.
So you have, because a lot of people they're like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And that isn't your problem. You have more than you could ever do.
Right.
Right. As far as ideas.
Right.
So when you look at that and you think I should do something, what is it at that point that is impeding your progress from choosing one and doing it?
I think it's the crayons principle. If you haven't heard of that, it's a too many crayons. They did some, and this is funny that I'm like, oh, I already know what it is.
No, that's good.
They did a study of little kids with crayons, and they gave one group a box of just 8 colors, and to the other they gave like the whatever, like
60
six,
the
yeah,
giant
600
pack, yeah.
crayons in a box, and they said choose your favorite color, and then the kids from the eight color group chose, the other one chose, and then they came back and they said, okay,
Yeah.
you have your favorite, all right, we'd like to trade you something like a candy or whatever for that color.
Yeah.
The kids from the giant box were way more willing to trade their color because they were so much less, invested in it.
Yeah.
The kids from the 8 color box were like, no, this is my color. Like, limited options provides whatever it is that makes people like really connected to their decisions and really own their decisions and feel like they've gone down the right path for whatever reason.
Yeah. No,
And so
that makes
like,
sense.
my giant list, it's like, well, if I start down that, like, what about the other thing I was going to write? Like, but it's still there. I don't know.
So have you heard of a morgue file?
Yeah.
Yeah, where you're not actually throwing it away, but it's kind of a someday maybe thing where it's like, so have you ever gone through and like tried to triage
Yes.
your list?
Yes. To a point.
We're talking about triaging in morgues.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
Well, no,
I'm
and
joking.
I
know. what
He's
those
not
are.
dead yet.
Yeah.
I got better.
I think I'll go for a walk.
Yeah.
No, I think triaging morgues as it relates to this is really useful because
Priority.
you need to kill the potential of enough of those projects that it allows you to
Select
do
from
one of them.
Yes, exactly.
And there is a weird thing about opportunity cost where
Right.
if you choose, we were actually having this conversation today at lunch with this guy at this conference. He was saying you tell kids that you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want. Anything you put your mind to, you can do it. But what we don't tell kids is, but what you choose to do will eliminate other options.
Yeah.
Like when you go down a path, by definition, it means that you didn't go down another path.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
That's the story of my life. Yeah.
Except for right now,
I'm not even on a path.
you are at a fork in the road.
Exactly.
In Alice in Wonderland, and there's a billion different directions that you could take, and the cat is saying,
Robert Frost is like,
well, which
choose a path, dude.
which way do
Yeah.
you want to go? And you say, I don't know. Well, where are you trying to get to? Oh, it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter which way you want to go.
Is this Johnny Depp version or?
No, in Lewis Carroll's thing, I'm quoting it poorly, but in Lewis Carroll's thing,
I know.
she's
I
talking
know.
to the cat,
I know.
and she
He
says,
just choose. Yeah.
I don't know which way to go. Well, where do you want to go? I don't know. Well, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
So there's kind of a couple ways to look at that list. There's stuff that's like, this is a 7-year project, so maybe that shouldn't be my first one.
Right.
This one is not as good as this one, so I'm just going to get rid of that right off the bat. I'm not excited about this one, so I'm going to delete that one. But then there's also, you have equally good options.
Right.
And then you look at the end of these equally good options, I will be down a different road. And so, is there a particular road that you would prefer to go down?
To go down first. Yeah. I have this article that I'm kicking around. I actually have a mentor. I emailed the idea, and she was like, "I love it. You should start researching it." Have I started researching it? No. How many weeks ago was that? 2, 3, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's number one. It's like, I want to write that. And then, like I was saying earlier, there's a list that I need to triage.
So, like, what I'm curious about is, like, what's the motivation of all these chapter ones? Because I had a lot of page ones. Like what I was describing before, it's like, I literally had so many just starts and stops. And a lot of it was like, I just would get like a page done and be like, well, it's just not there. It's just not like exactly what I want. It's not perfect. And I think what was preventing me, a lot of it was like that Art of War stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
which is like, War of Art stuff, which is
Probably the other one too.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like that weird kind of
Kill one of them, any of them.
it's that weird kind of like self-inflicted I think fear that causes like self-inflicted pausing on a project.
Yes.
Because it's like, I think I was actually afraid to make a comic because then it wouldn't be as good as I thought I was.
Right.
Right.
And that's like
Totally.
sincerely what motivated me to continually do these false starts, because it allowed me to have, and this is my own thing, but it allowed me to have the illusion of being a cartoonist without actually doing
Right.
the cartooning.
Yep.
Because if you never finish anything, no one can judge an unfinished work.
Exactly. It's a much safer space.
So it's a safer space to play because...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I literally have mapped out several novels that I haven't even started on. But I know...
Where they are.
I know
where
the
they're
beginning,
going.
middle,
Yep.
and end.
Yeah.
I have notes in Trello on all 6 main characters, character arcs, what their fears are. Like I've built that world,
Yeah.
but I haven't done the work to even like get it started.
Right.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it's great, and it feels emotionally
Yeah.
Yep.
amazing.
But what's scary about executing it is the fact that maybe it's not.
Right. Once I get it out
Yes.
in the world, and other people look at it and
Yeah.
say, "That was a crap idea that you spent 2 years on."
Yeah, it's kind of the conundrum I used to call the Tolkien Principle, like, because like when I was going to junior college, I'm sure we all ran into people like this, but it's like before I ever transferred to like a university or anything, I was at this junior college and there were guys who'd been there for like 15 years, and they were all working on their great fantasy novel.
Right.
Yes.
And they'd pull out like a backpack, and it
Yes.
just had like notes and notebooks and diaries, and they'd buy like special journals, and everything was like color coded, and they'd read books on like how to organize and plot
Yeah,
and stuff
best.
like that. So they'd have like their 50 different, sticky notes and stuff that like would help organize their plot
Yeah.
points and stuff like that. And then you'd ask them like what like about the book, and like they hadn't written it. So
Right.
they had created this whole fantasy. So it
Yeah.
was like almost like role playing being an author.
Mm-hmm.
And like
I love that phrase. Role playing being an author, not actually
awesome.
being an author, but as if you are.
and what's
Like
weird is that
cosplaying
method
writers.
Yeah,
A
and
lot
that
of people are
method
doing
works.
this every day.
Yeah, that method works
Yeah.
for some people. It does. Like
It's a
for
definition,
Tolkien,
yeah.
it did. But like there's so many people who, because
But at
they-
some point in time, he wrote his book.
Yeah.
Like he did the Silmarillion. He wrote all these
Yeah.
like languages
Yeah.
that he came up from. But at some point in time, he sat down and wrote the book.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of and once again it's like part of why he did that is because he's like a linguist, and that's
Right.
just kind of his brain and the way he thought. But not everybody's that way. Not everybody's an Oxford scholar who's doing that kind of thing and able to kind of take that and draw it together and make a body of work.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the world would do a lot better with less pseudo Tolkiens. You know,
No
but
offense.
what I'm saying is like I've been that person.
Sure.
Like, I've been that person, like kind of building it up and stuff, and a lot of what I think it was that was motivating it was like procrastinating actually doing it.
Well, and I think I doubt that there is a creative out there that's making anything today that didn't go through a stage of not creating while they're ramping
Yeah,
up. There's
yeah.
some sort of like the cartoon run where you spin your legs really fast in the air before you hit the ground and run.
But to me, the fact that you have all these chapter ones, like I think part of what you like, and I know everybody like is an armchair expert who's going to tell people what to do. But
I'm
to
all
me,
ears.
like
We're on
I've
YouTube,
barely
so we are experts.
yeah, exactly. But I've literally just met you, and one of the first things I wanted to ask when you mentioned the chapter ones is like, where's the chapter two? Like instantly, to me, I would pick one.
And head down the road.
Because literally none of those chapters are worth anything until
Unless-
they're done.
Exactly.
So there is some response that you get, positive response that we all get from creation.
Yeah.
And so you're getting that
Yeah. Yeah.
almost to your detriment.
Yes. It's like,
So-
feels great.
Right. I did something, I produced something, I produced another chapter, another chapter
and
one.
it's not the hard work yet.
Right.
And I think
Well, like
I
the second draft is going to be where it's a nightmare.
and the
right?
fourth draft is where
Exactly.
exactly. And so the other thing, maybe to give myself some credit in the midst of all this,
You should have some credit.
is it's like I'm laying down these little shells of where things are going, and freezing them like Han Solo in the proverbial carbonite.
Mhm.
Because a year from now, when I've finished the one thing and I'm ready to move to the next, I want to go back and open up that little
Yeah.
thing and peer in and like smell
And
what
you've
I
got
was
these-
smelling.
yeah.
And I have it there as a start. Like that moment is frozen for me, which is really important.
Yeah, it's like keeping a sketchbook. For
Yeah,
an artist.
exactly.
I get that because I've done that with dialogue, a conversation between characters,
Right.
and I'll
And you
I'll
jot it
get
down,
it out,
you keep it. Yeah.
and then a year later when I get to that scene or am
Right.
struggling with something, I can go to my kind of half-done stuff and
Yeah.
It's and I'm the same way with music. You know, I have chord progressions that I've literally played for years, and I like one I think I wrote lyrics for a couple years ago and turned it into a song maybe for like some open mic night thing.
Yeah.
And played it once, but I didn't really like it, but it was a start. Like that chord progression I still play sometimes, and I know it could go somewhere, but I just haven't even, you know.
But I mean, like, have you written songs?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yes.
So you know, like,
And
there's the difference between, because at some point
I have
you kind
written
of
songs.
you have to kind of
Right.
commit to one of the chord
Right.
progressions.
Exactly.
Hang with it.
Yep.
Let it grow. Maybe grab another one that
Yep.
was kind of floating.
Yep.
Kind of piece them together. Come up with a bridge, you know, and bind that thing together.
Exactly.
So, to me, it's just it's one of those things of like, you know, if you want to write a book, like you should be writing books, like period. You know, and it does sound like you've done journalism, like some published journalism and stuff,
Right.
which is so it's like you have the capability, you have the skill set, the tools are there.
It's the time and the decision and
Yeah.
the momentum.
Yeah. How
So-
much time would you need?
The thing is, I can crank out 1,000 words in whatever chunk of time in the evening. They're not amazing, but that's a nice start. Do that, you know, every night, every other night, whatever I decide.
I mean, are you talking half an hour, 2 hours?
Yeah, I'm talking an hour, hour and a half later. There's like something decent there, you know, as like.
What would you give up for it? Because like at the same time, like if you make that hour or that half hour, something's got to go. Is there something you could cut?
Netflix.
There you go.
Right. I mean, easy. Not easy, but easy
Right.
said.
So it's easy to say that, but what you're actually balancing is you've got a full-time job,
Yeah.
okay? You've got like human needs like sleeping and eating, right? You have 2 children under 6, and you have a wife, and then you also have relaxation and entertainment. So what is your tactical rubber hits the road plan
Exactly.
to find an hour a day? Because to say it's easy for everybody to say, because everyone will say this. Oh yeah, you know, I could work out. I just need to get up earlier, or I could
Exactly.
work out. I just need to, like, you know, whatever. And that's why I'm fat. You know,
Right.
is because I don't actually have a rubber meets the road plan for drawing.
You have that.
There is a time every
And
night
Yeah.
and a routine that my entire family participates in.
Did it appear? That
I'm ju-
routine that you're describing, did it just kind of
No.
appear out of thin air?
What actually happened is my marriage was in a terrible place because my wife had postpartum depression, and I had not
Created
handled
anything.
that situation
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
I became this yes man hollow servant.
It's
which,
a rough.
which
Yeah,
she
that's
didn't
a rough
she
thing
didn't
to
even want me
Yeah.
to do that, but I felt like that's what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I remember when she was pulling out of that 4 years later, she asked me what I wanted to watch for TV. I had no opinion. It wasn't that I didn't want to say what I wanted to watch. I literally didn't know what I wanted to do
Yeah, I've been there.
for entertainment.
Yeah.
Right.
And I realized I don't have an opinion. And so then I started on a little journey, and I said, I'm going to get into comics. And so I started my comic, and it was weird. I tried some times where I was getting up at 4:45 in the morning so that I could draw before work, before my commute. I tried other times where I would do it at night. I moved a chair into this closet that I was using as a studio so that my wife could hang out with me while I drew.
Yeah.
We've tried a lot of different configurations in our family, and what I've found that has really helped is that I had to articulate to my wife the value that creativity brought to me
Yeah.
as a person.
Right.
And then I actually find that now she is a huge defender of that time. That
Yeah.
she's almost more defensive of that time than I am, where she is to our friends saying, "Oh, Cory can't come out right
Yeah.
now," or she will tell me, you know, "Hey, I noticed that you haven't gone downstairs yet. Are you gonna do that tonight?"
Yeah.
And so because she understands and I communicated it well, that it's not a selfish thing, it's kind of like my dad in surfing. My mom realized pretty early on that my dad needed to surf to be a good husband, to be a good father. And so I think there's a couple things there. There's one, I decided what it was that I wanted to do, but then two, I communicated to those closest to me my need and the results of that need, and I was in a relationship where somebody cared enough about me to understand, to listen, and I go out of my way to protect her times for when she needs those things.
So it's an exchange too. I think you're bringing up some really good things. I think the one thing that I think is really important to target there, though, is how it started. Because it's not like your routine now just sort of popped up and you were like, oh, I've got the time. Like, you had to kind of shuffle and figure it out and fight to find that time.
Right.
And negotiate and discuss and kind of work it out and actually, start saying no to people on certain things and yes to people on some other things. It's like it's a complicated thing to make happen.
Right. Yeah.
But the thing is, it won't appear. It's like you could wait an entire lifetime and there's not going to be that magic window where your life has no complications and you have that perfect window of time to write. That window does not exist.
Yeah. I think there's three things that are really important now that you're saying this. It's helping me formulate this in my head. One thing that really helped me was even when we were living in a very small apartment, I had to have a physical space where that happened.
Yes.
So my studio now is an actual studio.
Yeah.
It's a room that is dedicated to just being a studio.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I have had it as a corner of the living room.
That's
I've
what
had
mine
it
is
where,
right now.
Right. I've had it where we moved our master bedroom bed like 2 feet over so that I could fit a little desk in the corner. I've literally been in a closet. But the one main important thing is that this is where I do this work. It is a space that is dedicated to that and nothing else happens there.
Which is super, I think it's a lost, how do I say that? It's like a lost tradition in society.
Right.
Like, we watch Netflix in bed, we sleep in bed, we make love in bed, we might as well eat every meal in bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
Pretty soon it's Wall-E and things will just come to us in bed.
And, like,
never
we
leave
have to
bed.
divide our physicalness and our, like, circumstances according to what we're doing, because it will only help, right? Does that help you guys?
No,
Right.
that makes sense. Yeah.
And then the other thing is carving out time.
Right.
So I think you need to carve out space and you need to carve out time. And I think both of us have tried a number of things. I tried during lunch, which works for Scott Circlin. He's able to get stuff during lunch. I don't have enough time during lunch to ramp up. I tried in the mornings and found that I still worked on it in the evening, whether I worked on it in the morning or not, and I was just getting less sleep and being super ineffective.
Yeah, I also just like I know people say you can condition it out of yourself, but I am a hate the world person in the morning. Like I really I am not
worst.
in the zone to create. And I can't force myself to, even with working out. Like I find it's easier for me to work out at night rather than in the morning. Because the first thing in the morning, the only kind of working out I'd want to do is just punching someone. Like, I don't like the morning.
Until about 2 p.m.
Exactly.
That's how it is,
So but it works differently for everyone in that time. Right. The one thing that I'd also say is important is to make it a non-negotiable. Like for yourself and for the people in your life. Like and the negotiating can be in like a giving, like you were saying, like where it's like I need the space for this, in turn I will make this space for you for whatever this is for you. And I think that's important too. But the point being, like, I don't think it can be a negotiable. It can't be much of a negotiation, because if you want to write, it's going to be hard to make the time to do it. And the time's not going to come easily. And to build a habit, like anybody who's tried working out knows this. Like the second you are like on a diet or you're trying to lose weight, that's when everyone comes out of the woodwork with like, oh, come on, but just this one cupcake or whatever.
Right.
And, you know, and it's like your friends, your family, like
Yeah.
people you thought were close to you, all of a sudden are just like, here's a bunch of candy. And you're like, well, I'm trying to do this, but come on.
I haven't talked to you in 3 months. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you bring me a cake.
Yeah. And, you know, that's what Pressfield talked about, like
Right.
resistance, which I
Yes.
think will happen, and it'll happen from people, even the people closest to you. So it's really important to, like, draw, like, a really firm battle line and be like, this is going to be my writing time.
Right.
Like, figure it out. Be like, you know, like, to me, like, the way I approached it was like, I need to get this minimum amount of work done a day. Like, even this, like, after we have this, I'm going to go home and I'm
Right.
still going to work on my comic for my designated daily amount.
As
Because
am
if
I.
I don't, it could be a week. And then it
Exactly.
could be a year. It's like, it's a
Yeah.
weird thing.
You know, you've said that multiple times,
Yeah.
and I had a former student, graduate now. He was watching one of these episodes, and when he heard you say that, it freaked him out.
Wow. That's good.
It should.
You know, Brent.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said the day he started his side project was the day he heard you say, you know, if I don't do it today, then it could be a month or a year or 2 years.
good.
So it's a really interesting thing. So here's a question. Jack Conte of Patreon gave a keynote speech today that was just one of the best
Yeah.
things, and you have mentioned it throughout the day. What was it about that struck a chord with you,
Yeah,
and what are you
fascinating.
going to do about it?
I wish I had my little notebook with me. But the one thing he said, the takeaway for me, the principle of it, I guess you could say, was give yourself credit for being on the journey of publishing while you're in the middle of something.
Yeah.
Like, he made the distinction between, like, a sporting event. A sporting event has, like, a binary ending and a finite moment when it's done.
Yeah.
And, like, there's a winner and a loser. We don't have that in creativity.
No.
Right, it's
There's
like
a
this
Monty
video-
Python bit about, like, a writers' Olympics that tries to do that.
Oh, that's funny.
I haven't
It's like a
seen
guy
that.
starting a sentence and then deleting it. It's like, yeah.
So anyway, he talked about that, and it was just wonderful. I need to look back at my notes, but it was helpful to me to realize, oh, good, I need to give myself credit for starting the journey.
Yes.
But at
yeah.
the same time, I need to keep following through in that act of creation
Yeah.
from the beginning until I can just say, whether it's a time frame or a length or
Yeah.
whatever, or emailing it to somebody, like whatever it is, saying I've done it.
Yeah, you need milestones
Yeah.
too. You need like certain points to
Right.
hit. So you've kind of gotten off the starting line.
Yes.
And it's
In
and
multiple races.
yeah. And I think it is hard, and I think it's hard compared like I think that a lot of journalism is a very quick win.
Oh, right.
Like, meaning it's a lot of work, but it's like usually it's rush time frames.
Yep.
And it's a quick win. Like
Yep.
when you finish
Little-
it and it's published.
Little candies along the way, like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm done. That was easy and stupid, right? And
Well, it's not always.
and
stupid.
I don't mean it that way. I mean what? And not even mindless.
Stupid
That's not.
Seymour Hirsch
Yeah, seriously.
exposing horrors in Vietnam. What's
not-
journalists doing?
Stupid isn't the right word. What I mean is,
I kind of think I get.
it's almost like that instant gratification
Yeah.
that we don't get from a lot of other types of projects.
Yeah,
I guess.
right.
Yeah.
And I think that relates to where I was at with comics and not doing comics for a long time, because I was a professional illustrator.
Right.
Part of why I even wanted to be freelance, and I did that for like 15 years, was like so that I could work on my great American graphic novel. And then I found that like all I was doing was like hustling for the next gig. And it's partially because, you know, it's like I have to provide for my family and stuff like that. But at the same time, a lot of it was also motivated by that quick rush of like, hey, I'm getting paid to do this. It's validation.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that paychecks validation. We've talked about that on
Yeah.
here. And so like these longer projects, it's scary to take on.
Yeah.
You know, because you're making a much longer term investment with, you know, maybe not even as good of a paycheck as like a short article.
Right.
You know.
Well, and the other thing that keeps cropping up is like, is that idea of like the motivation behind it.
Yeah.
You know, on the one hand, it's like, oh man, am I looking for that validation from the world to tell me like you're
Good
worth
question.
you're worth X because you got published in X publication?
Mm-hmm.
Dang. And like I need to be honest with myself and think, but then I think back to the origins of like the one project that I've not begun,
Yeah.
and it's like a really good question I had while reading this book, and now I just want to like dive into the research because I think it's like untapped. And that it came from a really good place, like a place of like honesty and investigation and like curiosity.
Yeah.
Instead of, I would like to get published in, name the
Yeah.
publication.
That's the best place to start. And I think that's what it comes down to is just starting
Right.
and finishing.
So the second part of my question was, I really think that keynote triggered something.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to do about it and when?
Yeah.
Like, what are the next steps?
Yeah, you need an art check, man.
You do. You need to find a writer
I know.
that you do this with.
Accountability buddy.
T-shirt, hashtag accountability buddy.
No,
That could be weird in so many ways. But like, so no, but really like, this has been really interesting because the way I worked prior to Josh and I doing this was
haphazardly.
in huge blocks of time.
Oh, yes.
Spaced out by like, that was tiring. Like I will pull an all-nighter and I'll draw for 12 hours, then I
Yeah.
won't draw for 2 days.
Yeah.
It's kind of like binge drinking,
It's
or
just-
binge
yes.
whatever. It's effective for the
For the
moment,
moment.
but it tears you up for like half the week.
Right.
So in the long term, it may not be the most effective, And so it's like that slow and steady wins the race kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes doing it in increments.
But I also find if the time period is too short,
Yes.
You can't get in.
It takes a while for me to
Yes.
warm up.
Yeah.
And it can cut off that flow like that you
Right.
get into when you get in a good
In a good
zone,
spot, yeah.
But I think by building a daily habit, you do allow that like zone to just kind of happen much quicker. Because right now,
Yeah.
like for me, the
Time
second I
and
get
place.
home and
Yeah.
I unlock my door
You're
and I sit at my desk, I'm not gonna need a moment to warm up.
Mm-hmm. You've trained yourself to be in that.
I've done
moment.
it so
Yeah.
long now that it takes me about 2 minutes to get in the zone and just draw.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
And
That's
that wasn't like that always.
I'm
I
not
literally
there now.
I literally had to do that. There are days where I'm totally not there.
Yeah.
Right.
But the majority of the time, yeah, I get there. It's
Yeah. There's
plug and play when I have that
From
window.
Yeah.
standing up from the couch to walking down to my studio will sometimes take me 30 minutes. My house isn't that big.
Yeah.
It's just I find so many other things that I need to do.
I need
right
to straighten
then.
my socks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to sharpen all the pencils.
Everything
in my
comes
studio.
out of the woodwork, man.
Yeah.
So that's my question. What is it that you are going to do? What are the next steps for you on this?
Triage number one, like within like this will probably sound lame, but triage this week,
Uh-huh.
like honestly, and like blocking realistic times out, and then saying, okay, what's number one, and then starting.
Yeah.
And part of it is like having the frank conversation with my wife and saying, look, like this is important to me, and I want to fit this in, and figuring that out, which
Yeah.
we've already talked about to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I mean,
But, yeah.
like I have a kid who's about the same age
Yeah.
as one of your kids, and like for me, the only time that works is like right after he's in bed.
Exactly.
Right.
Right at that. Boom. Good
So
night.
that's pretty much like bath time till
Yep.
then, all of that. Like I have to be there, and then
Yep.
I have to read him books and
Exactly.
stuff
Right.
because I don't want to
yeah.
be that distant dad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like when that's all done,
It's go time
that's
for
the
your
window.
Yeah.
And it's usually it doesn't like that. What I would think about before like talking to your wife about it is like, what's the minimum window you need? Instead of thinking about like the maximum window, just think like,
Yeah.
like for me, it was 30 minutes.
45 minutes, 30 minutes. Yeah.
I feel like 30 minutes is the magic number because it never ends up being 30 minutes. It always ends up being
And-
about an hour.
And as Hemingway always says, never what was the way he said it? Was basically like never finish the chapter, always leave something in the well for the next day, so that you're never finishing dry.
Yeah.
Todd Henry talks about that a lot.
Yeah, and Hemingway says that. I used to say it all the time.
But the beauty of that is if you limit yourself to 30 minutes and you just make that window, you're not going to, it won't only be 30 minutes. Because you're going to have moments where you get so in the zone where you'll just write for like an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm interested, because I know your wife, and she is a wonderful person, and in no way is that going to be a combative conversation, but the way that you described that, it's almost like you're gearing up for it. So I'm curious on, because sometimes I feel like we build anxiety around these conversations that we're going to have with people in our lives, when really, if you explain it from like, here's how this benefits me, rather than trying to accuse someone else of them being the problem. You know, it's for example, take it out of a relationship situation into work. If you come to your boss and you say, same situation in both things, hey, this is a problem and here's what you need to do to fix it, and this is why blah 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 blah.
It would be awkward.
That's always combative, right? But if the same situation, you come to them and you say, I'm wondering if you can help me with this problem.
Right.
I think I've identified a solution, but I really need you to
let me know if you have a better one.
Let me know if there's a better one or what you think about this. The second one, you've gained an ally, and the first one, you've immediately started a battle.
Oh, heck yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what is going on in your mind on your expectation in that conversation that you feel like you have to gear up for it rather than just have it?
I'm probably characterizing it wrong. No, it's not even a gearing up. It's just, we just need to have the conversation. There's no...
Okay, so it's just you haven't had it.
Yeah, there's no anxiety or, it's just saying, hey, you know what? I was thinking at this conference, X, Y, and Z. I think I really want to do this. And then she says, cool. Because really, and at least in our relationship, it's like, put the kids down, sweet. She can get on her Instagram and relax for a second. It gives
you that moment.
And I can do my thing.
So
which
that's
is basically what we do now.
That's the great thing about it, if done right, is like for me, what it came down to too was like I realized like I'm a much worse art director like at my day job if I'm not doing the creative outlet that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. Like then when I'm doing commercial work, I'm more resentful. While I'm doing it, or I put too much into it, and then it becomes too personal.
Right. Interesting.
And I feel like I have a much better perspective than Window.
It's just the work. There's this work, there's that work.
So I'm able to do my thing, like a lot of great writers wrote for like the Twilight Zone on the side. In my mind, like some of the Twilight Zone stuff's better than their novel stuff. Right. But in their minds, that might have just been the gig to kind of get those novels done.
Yeah.
And so it's like. I think you need that side outlet as a creative. I think like to me it's just interesting because like we talked for about like maybe 10 minutes when I first met you, and I was like, oh, you're a guy who needs to write. Like just instantly it just I could tell you actually really want to.
I don't bug most people about this.
Yeah.
I don't
we bug everyone.
I don't mean, but yeah, you do strike me because you often, we've been on this trip for a day and a half. You've told me, without me asking, 3 different story ideas that you have, unprompted. We're walking down the street, and you go, so, I had this story about this thing.
Those stories need to happen, and you're
funny.
doing an injustice to your ideas and your stories by not getting them done.
Yeah, but it's also really fascinating. This is all kind of coming full circle.
Yeah.
I remember in high school, that age, or even college, not having any of this coming from within me to create this at all.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, the right preparation with the right timing and some of these skills coming together, and then me kind of maturing in my tastes and in what I want to do with my life and time, it's really cool to watch it kind of come together and say, oh, I know how to put together a nice sentence.
Yeah, you're really...
And I read like that thing all the time. I'm seeing the bad stuff in my students' writing every day, and I can judge adequately pretty well.
Yeah.
I teach like the advanced editing course. It's like, come on, buddy. You know what I mean? But it's cool to realize like for whatever reason, I don't know why, it's all kind of bubbling up within the last 6 months or year.
That's exciting.
And I'm at a point where it's like, I got all these random things rising to the surface and I need to like get them down.
That's good though. It's good, man.
So, right, to give myself the credit, it's like I have now, kind of like you guys with your Trello boards or whatever, frozen some of those moments. I'm gonna come back when it's the time, and I'm gonna just like knock you out. But need to like choose and say, this is the thing now. Focus.
Yeah, and the
do
tough thing is once you target it, don't switch gears, because then you're building a habit of
Yeah.
just flopping
Right.
all over. And I would give it a real go.
Right.
I mean, there are points where some projects are worth abandoning.
Yeah.
You know, like
Or pausing.
but give it a real like
Right.
serious hit, because like then you're knocking one thing off. And the thing that's weird when it starts becoming a habit is when you actually get one of those things ticked off and moved.
Yeah.
Because like there is this weird feeling that's very fleeting, but there's something really addictive about finishing it.
Yeah.
Amen.
So yeah, this is cool. I appreciate
good.
that you're like open to like talk about that kind of stuff too. It's very cool.
It's cool that you're
cathartic.
It's cool that you're
inspiring.
able to talk about how you're failing at doing stuff.
Yeah. No,
That's awesome.
I'm a
Hashtag fail.
fail army.
No, I mean I think it's really good. Yeah, I'm hoping that the sound works out on this, because it was a great conversation.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope we're coming across clearly. And we definitely went over our 15 minutes, Corey. What the
I know.
hell?
We're really. I bet we have at least 2 of the 61 videos that have been 15 minutes or less. But anyway.
You know what the other
check
day
in.
when we
Good,
were
good.
doing our art check, one of the people in the comments was like, "I appreciate that you guys always go over 15 minutes. It really makes my night." And I'm like,
We're
"Okay,
doing it
that's
for
cool."
you. That was Scott, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
we're doing it for you, Scott.
Bait and switch. Bait and switch.
Yeah, that's what it is. Well, there was a guy today that was talking. He goes 2 Minute Tuesdays, and he's like, I never actually hit 2 minutes. I always go way over.
Yeah.
He goes, actually, when I do hit 2 minutes, my audience gets really pissed, and they're like, what is this? 2 Minute Tuesdays? It's actually 2 minutes. I'm really mad about that. Anyway, yeah. So, any closing comments?
Nike swoosh.
Okay.
Do it.
Oh no! This can't be advertised. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah.
Yeah. Anything you want to?
No, I think I'm good. It's been cool like meeting you in person.
Yeah.
It's kind of rad, because it is funny. Like the interesting thing about doing this is it doesn't feel like I'm meeting you for the first time. I'm like, oh, dude, like,
Yeah, this is really
Yeah.
interesting because for me, I used to edit video. My first job out of college was I would put headphones on, and I would sit in a dark room editing other people's interviews.
yeah,
And so they're looking at the camera, and so it feels like they're looking at you, and then you edit literal hours of them talking about something. I would bump into those people at a supermarket or
and
something.
you feel like you do them.
And I'd be like, hey, man. And they're like, they've literally never met me before, and they have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I feel like this connection.
Yeah.
Anyway. But with you, I found it really funny. When you first started talking to me, it occurred to me, I've only heard your voice through headphones.
Yeah.
You sound way different in person
Yeah.
than you do.
A lot less
Smoother.
Kermity, I
Smoother,
think.
yes.
Yeah. No, I come across. I have like a Kermit the Frog curse, where
Now that you're saying it, that's the only thing I'll hear.
whilst recording,
That's funny.
it always comes across as Kermit.
I always come
He's
across
a lovable
as
guy.
super
Yeah, he
cheesy announcer voice guy. I feel like I'm trying to project, and I get the like, hey. So yeah.
It's Saturday night.
Sunday.
Welcome to our check. Anyway, so yeah, so we'll wrap this up. I'm curious though on this one. I think a good question would be, what are some of the obstacles that you guys come up against?
Yeah.
And what are you going to do about those obstacles? Whether you are not creating something or whether you are currently creating something, there's something that's stopping you from being more efficient or being a higher quality or being more consistent.
Yeah.
What is that thing, and how are you going to address it? So in the comments, I'm curious on that.
Yeah.
So if you want to check out Josh's stuff, you can go to quarterlystories.com. Check out his comic, and if you want to see the page that he wasn't able to show today, go to Instagram, like it, comment it, share it, have it tattooed backwards on your forehead so you see it in the morning in the mirror. If you want to see my stuff, you can go to CoryKerr.com. And is there anywhere where we can see you currently?
I'm not even gonna.
So at some
Nope.
point in time in the future, I will have Stephen on again where he has chapter
Yeah.
2 written. And
There you go.
We'll have a follow-up episode.
somewhere you will be able to find him. Okay.
All right.
Great.
We'll see you guys later. I don't know how to turn this off. Is it this X?
I don't know. I guess we'll find
Let's
out.
try the X.